Welcome to Sparks of History. Joining us today is Hillel Fuld, who has been dubbed Israel's top marketer, having worked with global companies such as Google, Oracle, Microsoft, and Nike. In the aftermath of the horrific massacre here in Israel on October 7th, Hillel has been at the forefront of the social media war, advocacy on behalf of Israel and world Jewry. Thank you so much, Hillel, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start off with just a few questions, and we'll take it from there. How do you, or really any of us for that matter, make an impact when it appears that we're being vastly outspent on social media platforms? Who is the audience that you are addressing? Why is X, I still think of it as Twitter, why is that a preferred platform? And third of all, we're witnessing an incredible shift here in Israel in terms of unity and people coming together. How do we and should we unify the efforts of advocacy on behalf of Israel?
All right, so let's do this one by one. What was the first question?
I'm sorry. The first one was, how do any of us make an impact in the social media space, having been so vastly outspent?
Well, for starters, I think we have to define the goal. Is the goal to outnumber them? Because that's never going to happen. Is the goal to, spread worse lies than them and vilify our enemy with things that never happened? Because then we'll never win that war. So I think we have to define what impact is. And the way I view impact is every single mind that's changed, that every single, set of eyes that are opened to, the actual facts and the morality on our side and the lack of morality on the other side. And, I think the truth at the end of the day will prevail. And it already is. We are seeing a shift. There's no question about it. But I think if we define impact as, person by person, spreading the truth, educating others, then yeah, each of us can have a tremendous impact. On my end, my posts on X are getting close to 200 million impressions since the beginning of the war. And thousands and thousands of messages from people saying, wow, I had no idea that that's what Zionism was. Wow, I had no idea that, the Palestinian population grew 600% under Israel. Wow, I had no idea that there are Arabs in senior roles in Israel. It's just a matter of opening people's eyes. They just aren't aware of the facts. They just don't know, that they're ignorant. And so I think if we view it like that, where we can help change minds one by one, then I think I think it's very easy, maybe not very easy, but I think it's very doable for each of us to have an impact. What was the second question?
Who is the audience, which I think you obviously touched upon, and why is X a preferred platform, and what other platforms should people be trying to do some of the things that you were doing?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question as far as the target audience. I mean, if you'd ask me, I think the way I see it is I categorize people into three groups. Group number one is, our side, right? Group number three is the other side that, are a lost cause, and I completely write them off. The people that send me Heil Hitler and those kind of crazies, and those people are not listening. And so, don't waste your time on them. And the big group that I believe is our target audience is the middle, which is people, like I mentioned before, who just simply don't know and are willing to listen to and hear. It's important to emphasize that the first group, as in ours, we also need strengthening, right? We also need quote unquote ammunition to be able to debunk the lies that people are presenting to us, when the lies are, infinite, endless. And so I think the first two groups are our target audience. One is giving our side, quote unquote, the ammunition to know the facts and, present them. And the second group, which is people that just simply don't know at all, and to give them the history of the conflict, to give them, actually, the way I see it, it's to provide moral clarity, because the world is just so morally bankrupt. So I think that would be, the mission is to provide moral clarity to the first two groups. And what was your third question?
The third question was, we talked about X, Twitter.
Right. So, I think there's not a right answer to what platform we should be on. Some people are more comfortable on Facebook. Some people are more comfortable on LinkedIn. If you'd ask me and what works for me, I think X is definitely a balance of the most, I would say, effective place to have dialogue, but it's also the lowest barrier to entry. Meaning, I'm not saying Instagram is not extremely important. Of course it is. In fact, TikTok might be the most important, but for you to have a successful TikTok account, there's a high barrier. You need designers, you need videographers, editors, etc. Whereas into X, you could open an X.com account and start tweeting immediately with absolutely no barrier. So I think to balance those two things, ease of use, combined with the fact that it is a very central platform in terms of the dialogue and the conversation, to me, it's a clear choice that is, the most effective platform. And I can say on a personal level, I think my LinkedIn posts since the beginning of the war have gotten less than 10 million impressions, 7 or 8 million, I think. Facebook's about 5, Instagram's about 6 or 7 million, and Twitter's 180 million. So I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay. And the issue of unifying, again, unity here in the country, which has been remarkable, incredible. Hopefully it stays. And in this social media war, should we be unifying the different voices on behalf of Israel?
I mean, listen, the unity that we're seeing, is biblical. I have no other way to describe it, right? I mean, the contrast between what was a few months ago in this country and now could not be, more obvious. It's pathetic, literally pathetic, that we needed Hamas to unify us. But I want to hope that when this is over and Hamas is no more, that we maintain that unity. I think it's very important the Jewish people are unified, but I think that let's not forget that in every generation and in every exile or every salvation, let's call it, every time God performed and stepped up and helped us get out of whatever we were in, there were always the Erev Rav, there were always the people that did not leave Egypt, or the people that did not want to go into the land of Israel, or the people that did not want to jump into the sea. And so there are, in today's generation, in this war, there are, same thing, there are, I don't know, definitely not millions, but there's a nice group of Jews who have lost their moral compass completely. And like every other exile that the Jewish people were part of, they are trying to out-American the Americans, right? Who are the most liberal people in America today? It's the Jews. And that's the same thing with Nazi Germany. They were trying to out-assimilate, out-German the Germans, and out-Greek the Greeks, and out-Roman the Romans. This is what we do. And as soon as we assimilate and we say to the people, or the country that we're in, we're just like you, the country has to remind us that we're not just like them. And the way they do that is something called anti-Semitism. And so today we're seeing that assimilation in America and around the world has been staggering. And now we're seeing the world is reminding us, you're not just like us. You might march in human rights protests, and you might, fight for the Palestinians, and you might even, treat a mass terrorist in your hospitals and help him survive a brain tumor, but it won't help, because he's going to turn around and stab you in the back. And that's what they do. And we have to wake up. And so unfortunately, there are many Jews around the world today who have yet to internalize that they are not just like, the people around them. And so I don't know that I would necessarily allocate resources to those people who are, as far as I'm concerned, so ideologically lost and even indoctrinated. To me, as a human being with finite resources, I think that, those people, as far as I'm concerned, are low on the list of people that I need to dedicate time to. As sad as that is, by the way, it's a very sad thing to say, but I just think at some point.
And unifying the resources, in other words, everyone has their skill set, everyone has their strengths, their weaknesses. Is there a way to unify, or is it just everybody doing, staying on message, doing their thing? The government does its thing, this organization does its thing. Obviously, you're doing incredible work. Should there be an effort to bring everyone together on this?
Of course, 100%. And there are many efforts, whether it's WhatsApp groups, whether it's forums, offline. There are many, many initiatives to unify our advocacy. To me, the biggest challenge is not necessarily what platform to be on or what images to use. It's more of, what is the narrative? What is our story? What are we telling the world? Are we telling the world that we're the victim? That's not a very good narrative, because once we no longer are the victim, and then what? Then what's our narrative? Or is the narrative of the Jewish people online today, oh, look, everyone hates us? Not a good narrative. No one cares. If everyone hates you, then no one cares that everyone hates you. And, the double standard, which I myself, obviously tweet and post about because it is infuriating. But is that the most effective narrative? Doubtful. So the big question is, what is our narrative? What is our narrative? And so to me, my narrative online has been twofold. Just basically fighting misinformation and spreading accurate information as close to real time as possible, which is extremely important. And the second thing, maybe more important, is spreading positivity and optimism and helping the first group, us, keep our heads up. And I got to tell you, literally right now, as we're speaking, I'm in the middle of writing a post, which I just heard in a video from a soldier. It changed my entire perspective, because yesterday, for example, I was completely burnt out. I could not open my Twitter. I was like, I'm losing my mind. These people are nuts. There's nothing I can do. I give up. Not really, but I was very burnt out.
Right.
And, deep down, subconsciously, I probably thought to myself, that my exhaustion is a weakness. Like, come on, Hillel, get up. Like, people are waiting for you. Like, people are depending on you. And that upset me. And, this isn't the first or second time this has happened in the war, because this whole thing is exhausting. And so I kind of felt like, okay, that exhaustion is a weakness. But this soldier pointed something out, which, wow, I never thought about this. Who else was exhausted in war? Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't hold his hands up. He was just exhausted. He couldn't hold his hands up, and he needed his brothers to support him in that moment of exhaustion. And he did, and he turned to them, and they held his hands up. And I think that this is not, it's not a coincidence that was the war of Amalek. I think that is what Amalek's all about: is exhausting us, right? It's just exhausting us, and I think that that's what these enemies are doing to us today with their lies and their poison and their incitement and their just endless hatred of Jews. It's just like, I'm exhausted, but we won then and we'll win now. And I think that we can learn a lesson here from the greatest leader in history. If Moshe Rabbeinu was exhausted during war and he managed to ask for help, I think we can do the same.
Just take us back. How did you deal with that false narrative, the pernicious false accusation that was promoted that it was the IDF that bombed the hospital in Gaza, and it took a little bit of time for the truth to come out? And how did you deal with that?
I mean, I was fortunate. I am fortunate to have access to very, let's call it, not confidential, but real-time information from government officials and from the IDF, who I work very closely with. And I knew well before the press had reported it that this hospital was bombed, and I knew it wasn't the IDF. And so I tweeted it and I said, heads up, you're about to hear about a hospital being bombed in Gaza, and you're going to be told it was Israel, and it wasn't Israel. And that tweet got millions of impressions. And so by the time the propaganda machine kicked into action and everyone was being told it was Israel, those hundreds of thousands of people who saw my tweet were prepared and knew not to eat up the propaganda. Now, is that, global impact? Did every person see my tweet? No, but hundreds of thousands did. And so that, again, is brings me back to my mission, which is fighting misinformation, spreading, accurate information as real time as possible. And that was a perfect case study. And that, to me, was very effective.
In speaking the last couple of days to a number of friends in the United States and America, two things kind of struck me. One who's in education said that their students who are now at the university campuses are terrified. They're basically in their rooms, afraid to go to the kosher dining hall, trying to pick which classes to go to that they won't be confronted. Now, that's one conversation. Second conversation it was with a very good friend of mine who was one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet, and he's packing a gun now. And you're hearing, communities where they're buying guns, they're packing guns in America. What's your specific message to American Jewry?
It's a complicated question because, I'm not going to pretend that just getting up in the middle of your life, packing up and heading to Israel is like an easy thing to do. It's not easy. It's not trivial. And, I can't judge anyone who doesn't do that. Having said that, if we're going to be, honest with ourselves and we're going to have integrity, I wouldn't even call it integrity, just intelligence. we would open history books and we would see how this is going to play out. And I don't think we're going to have the luxury of waiting a few years for the rhetoric to lead to actual extermination of Jews, which is what it took in Germany, because here, October 7th happened, and by November 7th, the rhetoric turned into actual violence. And so things are moving very fast. So yeah, I mean, if you're, while you're there in the States and in Europe, obviously you have to defend yourself. But just I think everyone should start internalizing what many of us knew forever, which is that is not your home. And it might seem comfortable till a month ago, but now, as predicted, it turns and reverses and goes 180, which is what it does always throughout the generations. And so I could say to my brethren and my brothers and sisters around the world, do what you got to do over there, but be prepared to get on a plane, because things are not going to get better. Things are going to get a lot worse and very fast.
Any concluding thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that something that I heard from Rav Ephraim Goldberg really sums it up perfectly. And he said about the pasuk in Lech Lecha that God says to Abraham, leave your home, leave your family. And then he says, very interesting verse. He says the words, Va'avarcha mevarechecha, those who bless you, as in the Jewish people, will be blessed. Umekalelcha, those who curse you, you would expect the Torah to say, akalel, I will curse. But it doesn't. It switches language. It says aor. And so Rav Goldberg said something, I don't remember in whose name he said it, but he said, this is the way to read the pasuk. This is the way to read the verse. Those who stand by you, the Jewish people, in your darkest hours, those who give you support, they will be blessed. Those that get in your way, those that get in your face, those that don't choose your side, will see your light. We'll see your unity. We'll see what you do for each other, and your light will extinguish their darkness. To me, that is what it's all about. It's about continuing to shine our bright light through all of the things that we're doing, whether it's online, offline, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, that's the best way to get rid of darkness. You got to fight darkness with light. And I think that that's what we're doing. I think that's what we've always done. And I want to hope and believe that we maintain and sustain that light even after Hamas is no more.
Amen. Again, thank you so much, Hillel, for your time today. And Mechael, you should go from strength to strength. And we should see a speedy victory, total victory in the days to come.
Amen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.